To channel. Now let us say about thrombosis. Actually, what is thrombosis? Whenever in the vascularized or any injury endothelial cells, the clot or aggregate forms. But when a clot or aggregate forms in a normal healthy endothelial tissue, then it is known as thrombosis. So actually there are three abnormalities which are causing the thrombus formation. The first one is the endothelial injury and the stasis or turbulent blood flow. What is stasis? Stasis is nothing but whenever our endothelial cells dilate, they dilate too much, causing a stasis means improper flow, so the blood gets accumulated and again which leads to favor of thrombosis. And next one is a hypercoagulability of blood. So let us say about endothelial injury, the important cause of the thrombus formation in the heart or arterial circulation. So here the example is in cardiac chambers after the endocardial injury due to the myocardial infection, or also due to ulcerated plaques in the atherosclerotic arteries, and also traumatic or inflammatory vascular injury in vasculitis. So the physical loss of the endothelium lead to the exposure of the subendothelial extracellular matrix, which is leading to the aggregation again. So this dysfunction in the endothelial cells lead to the more procoagulant factors. Example, platelet adhesion molecule anticoagulants like thrombomodulin, PGI2 and TPA. This may be also due to the hypertension, turbulent blood flow, and also bacterial endotoxins, radiations, injury, metabolic conditions like hemocystopenia, hypercholesterols, and toxins absorbed from the cigarette smoking. So the alterations in the normal blood flow like turbulence also leads to the thrombosis by endothelial injury or causing dysfunction, as well as forming the counter currents and local pockets of the stasis. So this is major in actually venous thrombosis. The normal blood flow, that is laminar. What is laminar? Is always all cells move in the middle and the plasma moves periphery. That is all cellular elements moving central and peripherally plasma. So the promote endothelial activation, enhancing procoagulant activity and leukocyte adhesion. So these all lead to formation of thrombus. And also there is disruption of the laminar flows and bringing platelets to the contact with the endothelium. So platelets get adhered to the endothelium. They prevent the washout and dilution of activated clotting factors by fresh flowing blood, and the inflow of the clotting factor inhibitors. So actually whenever the blood flows happily freely, then actually this coagulation factors also wash out, but here the inhibition of free blood flow takes place and leading to clot. And ulcerated atherosclerotic plaque expose the subendothelial extracellular matrix and also cause a turbulence. So the aortic and arterial dilations are which causing the aneurysm, and this is leading to the local stasis of the blood. In cardiac mural thrombi, what is this? Is actually the infection in the non-contractile, because if it is contractile, this contents moves and the clot forming agents will block, but it is non-contractile, so they get stasis there and the cardiac aneurysm is forming. So associated with stasis or abnormal leading to the cardiac mural thrombi. Here you can see the picture of cardiac mural thrombi. And next coming to rheumatic mitral valve stenosis. Mitral valve stenosis is because of the left atrial dilation and also leading to atrial fibrillations because of the profound stasis and forming the thrombi. And hyperviscosity of the blood, because the blood is more viscous, it moves slowly and leading to stasis again and leading to stop of flow there. So in polycythemia vera, there increase in the resistance of flow causes the small vessel stasis or deformed RVC in sickle cell anemia and causes the vascular occlusion resulting stasis, again causing thrombosis. And next the hypercoagulability. So hypercoagulability, more ability to coagulate. So more coagulation, more thrombus again. So this is also called as thrombophilia. It is less frequent cause actually, but important in some cases. The alteration of coagulation pathways lead to thrombosis. Is divided into primary genetic, so it may come as genetic or acquired sometimes. So the point mutations in favor V in factor V and prothrombogene are most common, leading to this thrombosis. Approximately 2% to 15% cases carry one nucleotide mutations in the factor V. These are called as Leiden mutations, that is high in the deep venous thrombosis, about 60%. So the mutation in the glutamine to arginine substitutions at 506 position especially renders the factors V resistant to the cleavage by the protein C. So the lower risk of thrombosis. So actually due to these mutations there is lower risk of thrombosis in these patients. The rare inherited cause of primary hypercoagulation of anticoagulants like antithrombin 3, protein C, protein S are with venous thrombosis mostly and the recurrent thromboembolism. In adolescence and early adulthood, it is seen the various polymorphism in the coagulant factors genes can result in the increase of the synthesis and they impart the high risk of the venous thrombosis. So even in using, so why we get all this? By using oral contraceptives which increase the estrogen and liver synthesis, so thereby it leads to more liver synthesis of procoagulant factors leading to coagulation thrombosis. And also in pregnancy, cancer, smoking, obesity, it may take place. And in heparin induced thrombocytopenia syndrome. What is this? It's actually the unfractured heparin induced. But actually heparin is an anticoagulant, but sometimes heparin induced thrombocytopenia also causes coagulation leading to more thrombosis. So why this is a unfractured heparin induced appearance of the antibodies, because of antibodies that recognize complex of heparin and factor 4 on the surface of the platelets. So this is the main reason, and the binding of the antibody to the platelets results in the activation of the aggregation. So again consumption and thrombosis. So even anticoagulant like fondaparinus may also cause it, like the heparin. And next we have the antiphospholipid antibody synthesis. This is also called as lupus anticoagulant synthesis. It has a recurrent thrombosis and it is repeated miscarriages and cardiac wall causing it, and also thrombocytopenia. So depending on the vascular bed, there are pulmonary embolism and pulmonary hypertension, stroke, bowel infarction, renovascular hypertension. So the fetal loss attributed to the AB antibody mediated inhibition of the TPA for the trophoblastic invasion of uterus. So it is also used it is also caused by the renal microangiopathy, and in vivo these autoantibodies induce the hypercoagulable state causing the endothelial injury. So we know whenever there is an injury in the endothelium, it causes the platelets, again that platelet plugs, and finally leading to thrombosis. So in vitro actually these autoantibodies interfere with the phospholipids and inhibit the coagulation. So the antibody also give the false positive serological test for syphilis because the antigen in the standard analysis is embedded in the cardiolipin. So this is about this. And coming to morphology, which is important, the thrombi developed anywhere in the heart. The arterial thrombi begin at the turbulence or endothelial injury, and the venous thrombi begin at the site of stasis. The arterial thrombi grow retrograde, that is in the opposite direction, and the venous thrombi grow in the direction of the blood flow, but finally they both move towards the heart. It's poorly attached to the endothelium, so leading the embolism. So what is this embolism? Is as it is not sticking to the endothelium, it again moves to other organs, and it is mostly dangerous because going to other organs and also failing them. So the thrombi have the lines of Zar represent the pale platelets and fibrin deposits alternating with dark and light lines. So this present in the antemortem, not in postmortem. In postmortem we will not see the line of Zahn, that is important. In antemortem cases we can see the lines of Zahn. And the thrombi in the heart chambers or aortic lumen is known as mural thrombi. So what is mural thrombi? The thrombi in the heart chambers or aortic lumen. This mural thrombi is by the abnormal cardiac contraction, because if the cardiac is that is heart is contracting normally, there will be no stasis and no thrombi formation. But if it's a abnormal cardiac contraction, there may be stasis and leading to thrombosis. So here abnormal cardiac contraction means erythemias, dilated endomysium, a myocardial infarction, and also endomyocardial injury. So the ulcerated arteriosclerosis plaque and the aneurysm and the dilation precursor of the cardiac thrombosis. So the arterial thrombi may be occlusive and the venous thrombi is actually not occlusive, invariably occlusive. the more red cells are present in venous thrombi, so it is also called as red or statice thrombi. And 90% of the lower extremity, we can see it is mostly in the legs, in the profound deep veins. And the postmortem clots look like the yellow chicken fat. And there is no lines of Zans in the postmortem, but in the antemortem there are lines of Zan. And the infective endocarditis is by bacteria or fungi. And in hypercoagulative states, the bacteria thrombi, non-bacterial thrombi, endocarditis can be seen. So this is all. Let us see the fate of thrombus. If a patient survives the initial thrombosis, then the ensuing days to weeks, the thrombi undergoes some combination of events like propagation. Propagation means again moving to other places. Embolization. Propagation means moving in a same body to different. The thrombi accumulate additional platelets and fibrin, and the process was discussed earlier. And the embolization is dislodge and travel to other sites of vasculation. This is also described. And the dissolution. Dissolution is a result of fibrinolysis, which can lead to the rapid shrinkage and total disappearance of the recent thrombi. So in contrast, the extensive fibrin deposition and cross-linking in the older thrombi renders them more resistant to lysis. So they are like dangerous because they are more resistant to lysis, and this distinction explains why the therapeutic administration of fibrinolytic agents like TPA, example in the setting of acute coronary thrombosis, is generally effective only when given at the first few hours of the thrombosis, because sometimes if we give that same drug after late time, it becomes resistant and we can't stop this. So in the organization and recanalization, sometimes what happens is the older thrombi become the organized by ingrowth of endothelial cells and also smooth muscle cells and fibroblasts, and they eventually re-establish to continue the original lumen. So this is a good thing for us because they are recanalized and they are safe now. Although the earliest capillary channels may not restore a significant flow, sometimes they may not, but it's okay. Continue to recanalize, convert a thrombus into smaller mass, and then next it just incorporate with the vessel wall of ours, and eventually remodeling and contraction of the mesenchymal elements. Only a fibrous lump may remain as a mark of the original thrombus. So occasionally the centers of thrombi undergo the enzymatic digestion, presumably as a result of the release of lysosomal enzymes from the trapped leukocytes and platelets. So in the setting of the bacteremia, such thrombi may become infected and producing an inflammatory mass that erodes and weakens the vessel wall. If unchecked, it may also result to myocardic aneurysm. So this is important. Of course, it is good to us, but if it is unchecked and left like that, it may also cause a myocardic aneurysm. So this we need to important. And next, coming to the clinical consequence. Here comes the thrombi is significant because they cause the obstructions of arteries and veins, we know, and they are the sources of the emboli, because thrombi is the one which is leading to embolism, of course, because which is getting transported to other organs. So which affects the predominates depends on the site of thrombosis. So venous thrombi can cause the congestion and edema in the vascular beds distal to the obstruction, but they are far more worrisome for their capacity to embolize. Actually, venous thrombi are dangerous because they can embolize to the lungs and cause death too. So conversely, although arterial thrombi can embolize, they cause downstream infections as thrombotic occlusion at critical site, coronary artery, and also may cause a serious. So even arterial thrombi is serious, leading to coronary artery diseases. And the venous thrombi. Now let us see about this. Phlebothrombosis. The most venous thrombi occur in the superficial or deep veins. In the superficial veins, thrombi typically occur in the saphenous veins in our legs, we know, and the setting of the varicositis. Although such thrombi can cause local congestion, swelling, pain and tenderness, they rarely embolize. Nevertheless, the local edema and impaired venous drainage do predeposit the overlying skin to infections from slight trauma and do development of varicose ulcers. Deep venous thrombosis in large leg veins at or above the knee, popliteal or femoral, is more serious because such thrombi more often embolize to lungs and give rise to the pulmonary infarction, although they can cause local pain and edema. So the venous obstructions from the DVTs can be rapidly offset by collateral channels. Consequently, the DVTs are asymptomatic in approximately 50% of the people or affected individuals, are recognized only in retrospective after embolization, because we think this is because of sitting for more time, or in bedridden patients, it forms like edema and the water gets accumulated. So it is mostly asymptomatic in 50% of people. The lower extremity DVTs are associated with the hypercoagulative state as described earlier. The common predisposing factors include the bed rest, immobilization, and they form the milky action of the leg muscles, resulting in the reduced venous return and congestive heart failure too. So the trauma, surgery and the burns not only immobilize a person but are also associated with vascular insults. So the procoagulant release from the injured tissue increase the hepatic synthesis of coagulant factors and that thereby forming the thrombosis. And also it is seen in the potential of amniotic fluid infusion at the circulation at the time of delivery and late pregnancy and also at the postpartum period are also associated with systemic hypercoagulated tumor associated inflammation. And coagulation factors, that is a tissue factor, factor 8 and procoagulants mucin released from the tumor cells that contribute to the increased risk of thromboembolism in disseminated cancers, so called the migratory thrombophlebitis or Trousseau syndrome. So regardless of the specific clinical setting, advanced age also increase the risk of DVT. So age is also a factor. The arterial and cardiac thrombosis. Atherosclerosis is a major cause of arterial thrombosis because it is associated with the loss of the endothelial integrity and also the abnormal vascular flow, which is nothing but leading to this. So the myocardial infarction can predispose cardial mural thrombi by causing the dyskinetic myocardial contraction and also damage to the adjacent, not only itself but also damages the adjacent endocardium. And also we can see the rheumatic heart disease may enlarge the arterial mural thrombi, and besides local obstruction, cardiac and aortic mural thrombi also embolize peripherally. All the any tissue can be affected, the brain, kidney, spleen are particularly the targets because of the rich blood supplies given to them. And next, the last topic of this thrombosis is the disseminated intravascular coagulation. So what is this? The disorders are ranging from the obstetrics complications to advanced malignancy and complicated by DIC. The sudden or incidental onset of wide spread of fibrin thrombi in the microcirculation, although these thrombi are not grossly visible, they are readily apparent microscopically and cause a diffuse circulatory insufficiency. So particularly in the brain, lungs, heart, kidneys, mainly like systematic circulation. To complicate matters, the widespread microvascular thrombosis results in platelet and coagulation protein consumption, and at the same time fibrinolytic mechanism are activated. So what they are saying is, whenever this takes place, because here you can see this is a vessel and it has thrombi, as it is all as every coagulation factors are reaching here, there is lack of coagulation factors in our body. So at the same time, in the same person, there will be clots and also there will be overbleeding. So this is a kind of rare case. So what happens is, there are also formation of clots and there are also bleeding because these all coagulation factors are used in this. So there are no more coagulation factors to repair the injured tissue. So in the same person there will be overbleeding and also coagulation. So this is a rare kind, that is the disseminated intravascular coagulation. So thus an initially thrombotic disorder can evolve into a bleeding catastrophe. It should be emphasized that DIC is not primary disease but rather a potential complication of any condition associated with widespread activation of thrombin. So it is discussed later in our other chapter, chapter 14. So this is all about thrombosis.